So this is the current state of my workshop, and it is quite a state. I have 4 horizontal surfaces. I have this here workbench, then I have my main big massive workbench, which I love because it has my solid vise and nothing moves, so that's very good. Big, solid, has the drill press and the bandsaw. Then I have the side bench, which I don't work on, I just dump stuff on. And then I have my table saw. Now, how it should theoretically be is my table saw has nothing on it, so I can always cut. This workbench has some stuff at the side, but it's clear, so I can use this vise. And this workbench is completely clear because it is my favourite one and I have lots of room to do what I want. And then this is a few things sitting at the side. But as you can see, it's not like that. So instead of solving the whole issue, I'm going to make a new workbench. I want to change my current workbench to a new workbench, and I have 4 main problems with the existing one. So I haven't worked on anything for the workbench for a few months now, and I've come back to it, and so I've finally drawn up a bit of plans, and I've got here my 2 legs, and these are basically going to be the exact same, and they're going to have 4 half laps, which is going to be really strong. Now the basis of this design is actually off of my previous workbench design, which I did about 2 years ago, and it has half laps here, here, and up inside. That's a half lap there, and then it's jointed via a half lap into the main aprons and then locked in with screws. Now the legs are all glued together, so the 2 legs are 2 separate pieces all glued together, but they're only screwed into the aprons, and that means if you want to disassemble it, it's nice and easy, but it is still rigid strong. So I'm in the store here and I spy my legs. The bits I've chosen for the legs are a bit dirty, so I can give them a scrub down with the wire brush and then pass them through the planer. Now I just need to plane the leg cross members. With all the bits cut and ripped, this is how the legs are going to be. This is going to be the top here, and it's a nice thick apron, and on the bottom a smaller one. And this one and the other one actually, in fact as well, are both going to be inset into the legs so that they're flush with a half lap. But it isn't actually going to be a half lap, because this is going to be inset fully, so it's actually a housing or rabbet or dado. But on top of that, this one is extra thick because it is going to bear the weight of the table in the middle and of the tool well. So now I just need to cut out the housing grooves on the table saw. I've finished the first frame, so now I can just rinse and repeat. So I've brought the frames up to the house to get glued up, and this one's clamped. This one isn't because the joints were a tiny bit loose, so it all just fit nicely, so I didn't need to clamp it. But this one needed clamped a bit, but I'll leave them overnight and the glue will dry. So this is essentially the main frame. So we have the 2 leg frames, 1, 2, then we'll have the main aprons either side of the leg frames, and then in the middle to support the bench we've got 2 beams running down, and that will also leave the well in the middle. So you're going to have a foot of workbench here, a foot of a well in the middle, and then another foot of workbench on the other side. So this is my main apron, and it is so long I can use it for both of them. It's 4.5 meters. It's a little wet outside, so I've just started assembling inside, and I've got this leg frame attached, just screwed in to the aprons, and now I have to flip it around and do the other end. So I have the bench assembled and upright, and I have the two other bits on as well as the aprons, but they sit taller than the top of the aprons currently, and that's not good, can't have that. So I'm going to take a notch out of here, and then it'll be flat. And I could rip it to a new length instead of doing a notch, but why would I take away the extra width, which would add extra strength? The new workbench is structurally finished. Now I need to look at the old one, and I can completely clear it, take off the top, rip it in half on the table saw, and stick the two halves on the new one. With the top off, now you can see that when I built this, I had no clue what I was doing. So basically I built two frames and set them in between two posts, which is like the worst kind of joinery you can do, and it resulted in this really weak rubbish frame, which is why I built a new one. And I know I was raving about how wretched this was and how rubbish it was and how much I hated it, but I built it about 2 years ago with no joinery. It was all butt joints and screws, and because of that it actually was like pretty mediocre, because like I used it for 2 years. But it's just interesting because I've just taken out all the screws and I'm just left with some bits with no glue, so I suppose it's kind of handy. Pretty much worked just about alright, but most importantly it's taught me how to do things right, because the only way to do things right is to do them wrong first. So the three main things I did wrong with this workbench are the three most important things when you're building a workbench. First of all is the legs. The legs need to be rigid, and I did not do that. I built two frames, top and bottom, and stuck the legs in between and screwed them. No joinery, no glue, nothing, and that resulted in the legs being very, very wobbly, which is just absolutely rubbish. That's no good. Second thing is rigidity and cross braces. So on this one I did housing joints in the legs which tied into the aprons, and on the back I have cross diagonal bracings. Just like on this one I have cross diagonal bracings, and I haven't really done the housing joints on this one, but that's kind of alright because it's nice and stiff anyway. But on this there's absolutely no bracing whatsoever, and that made it really wobbly in the lateral position, and that wasn't good either. And last of all, casters. Now, 2 years ago, all the YouTubers, everybody still now, I'm pretty sure all the YouTubers say, casters, casters, casters. Oh, it's so great, you can move your workbench around. I've only moved it twice, and that has been when I've remodeled my workshop layout, and now I'm pretty sure I've got it right. But they're just rubbish, like why? Everything wobbles all of the time, it doesn't sit properly on the ground, unless it's completely flat, which nowhere is, and even, like, you just never move it, it's not worth it. Now that I've brushed the floor, you can see how incredibly unflat it is, because the main part of the building is stone, and it was built, I don't know when it was built, but it's at least 200 years old, which results in this lovely floor made up of large flagstones of stones, which is not flat. So somehow I need to get my rigid, lovely flat workbench to sit on a not flat floor. Somewhere by there. There we go. Perfectly level. Now I just need to turn this one into two tops. With the slabs trimmed on the table saw, they're a bit more manageable. Now I can just plop them on in their respective positions. Ooh. This way, you can see it coming together a bit better. Of course, there won't be a whole large hole here. So I have the bench in the configuration which I designed, which is a foot of workbench, a foot of tool well, and a foot of workbench. But when you're looking at it like this, that, I don't know, maybe it's because I haven't got a bottom in the tool well yet, but just that seems like a massive gap. So I think what I'm going to do is pull them together. The well has now been reduced from 12 inches down to 9 inches, and I think it actually makes an amazingly noticeable difference. For only 3 inches, I think this is going to be more workable. So I've been using the bench for about a week or two, just with the tops sitting on, and it's been alright, but it's kind of scary with this big hole in it. So I'm ready to fix on the tops, but I need to clear all of this rubbish. There we go, nice and clean. And look at that, there's a vise attached. Yes, stuck this bad boy on, and I even have a video on it there. So besides that, I'll just ignore it. But the bench is lovely and clean and ready to be fixed on. And simplest way, just stick some screws in, nice and solid. But I do not want to do that, because then I'll have screws on the top of my bench. And you're thinking, oh, well okay, just screw up from the bottom. Well, my aprons are a bit thick, so I can't really just screw in from the bottom. And then you say, oh, just use some pocket screws at an angle, you know, that's good. But I don't like pocket screws, so I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to try and figure something out. You have no clue how much it pains me to do this, but I can't think of another way that doesn't sacrifice the strength of the fixing. There's a big cavity in the middle, so I'm going to fill that in with some cheap rubbish chipboard that I have no other usage for, and so I'm going to use up because this needs to have no strength capabilities whatsoever. Also, I'm going to cut it on the table saw. I know I give chipboard a bad rep, but oh my, that was delightful to cut. It just went clean through like butter. However, I suppose that makes it really weak, which is why I hate it. But anyway, I need to drill the holes, and I'm going to do it while it's upright, so I don't have to do it upside down. Just put in the bottom of the well, and I'm realising it's a tool well. Why don't I put some tools in it, get them off the bench. Now the drill doesn't fit because the bit, but the rest, out of sight, out of mind, out of the way. Tops are on, the vise is on. The last thing is this bit here on the end. It's just, I'm not going to carry on the well or anything, I'm just going to do a straight bit, And this is because the workbench top was 6 foot, the bench is 7 foot. So I'm just going to plop on a solid bit, and that's actually advantageous because the bandsaw is going to sit there and that'll give it a bit more stability. Now I could use a piece of this painted grey MDF to sit in, and that'll make everything look lovely and nice. But I don't want to waste this lovely MDF since the bandsaw is going to be sitting on it and it's not actually going to be used as a workbench. So I'm going to use this piece of chipboard along with this piece of chipboard, and together the total thickness is the same as this stuff. With the top all sorted, I can now sit on the bandsaw. There we go. So, there we go. That's pretty much her done with the top on and the bandsaw on and everything. And I even added a vise. I did a video on that last week, so there you go. And at some point I'll have to add vise jaws to it because metal on metal, too squishy. But thank you very much for watching.